In 2022, the Conservative Party announced a plan to stop the small boat crossings by sending asylum seekers to Rwanda. They spent 4 years on it. They fought it through the courts. They passed laws declaring Rwanda a safe country. They chartered flights. They detained hundreds of people. They employed over 1,000 civil servants to work on it full time. And they sent 4 people. 4. Voluntarily at a cost to you, the taxpayer, of £700 million. So when Chris Philp stood up in Parliament this week and called the government's return scheme frankly disgraceful, I want you to keep that number in your head. 700 million. 4 people. Okay, so the government has announced a voluntary return scheme offering failed asylum seekers up to £40,000 per family to leave the UK. Now, on the surface, I get why that sounds outrageous. It sounds like a reward. It's like a wrong message. Even I had to sit with it for a few minutes. But here's the thing. The average cost of keeping a failed asylum seeker in a hotel accommodation, and this is the hotel accommodation, not luxury hotel. We're talking a room in a travel lodge with 4 people in it and, collapsing ceilings and that sort of stuff. That all runs roughly $41,000 per person per year for a family. Over the years it takes to process these cases, you're already looking past 6 figures before you've factored in things like flights and legal costs and enforcement, all that jazz. The government's argument is very straightforward. Voluntary departure at £40,000 is cheaper than the alternative. And when you look at the numbers, that argument actually does hold up. Chris Philp's argument is that this is a waste of money. So let's look at his record of that.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Well, it is disappointing the government did not come here voluntarily to announce their policies, and I noticed there was no apology. But given the scale of their failure, it is not surprising. Since the election, 67,000 people have entered the UK illegally, a 45% increase compared to the same period before. Many of those 67,000 have since committed serious crimes, including murder and rape. In the last 6 days alone, 900 illegal immigrants have crossed the English Channel, and the government's promises lie in tatters. The gangs are not smashed. The French are not intercepting boats near the shores, as we were promised last year. And last year, the so-called one-in, one-out deal saw 41,000 illegal immigrants come in across the Channel and only 300 go out. So, the government is now resorting to bribing illegal immigrants with £40,000 per family to leave. That is more than most working people here earn in a year. British workers should not have to pay record high taxes for this government to give their money away to illegal immigrants. It is frankly disgraceful. Instead, the government should now agree to our plan to leave the ECHR, which would enable them to rapidly deport all illegal immigrants. The crossings would then quickly stop, and there would be no need to bribe illegal immigrants to leave.
The man who helped design and champion the Rwanda scheme is calling this wasteful. The scheme that, and I need you to really hear this, cost $290 million in direct payments to Rwanda alone, chartered flights that never left the ground, detained hundreds of people and then released them, and paid over 1,000 civil servants to spend 2 years working on a policy that was ruled unlawful by the Supreme Court, and then just sent 4 volunteers to Kigali. 4 people, £700 million. That works out at £175 million per person, and he's upset about £40,000. Now, Philp also claimed in the same breath that only 300 people were being removed from the country. The minister's response is worth paying attention to.
Madam Deputy Speaker, it is a challenge to be lectured on the need for apologies from the architect of Trussonomics that mean that my constituents month on month pay more on their mortgages. But we've seen more of that mathematics from the right honourable gentleman there, because he says that £158,000 that on average we spend on families in hotel accommodation who have no right now to be here because they have finished their way through the asylum system, that spending that money is better value than spending £40,000 in order for them to return home and to build their lives. Again, I'm not surprised. He talks about gangs. Well, he will know there have been a record level of interventions, more than 4,000. He talks about our work with the French. Well, he'll know too there's been 40,000 preventions of crossings. He'll know too, he mentioned returns. Well, 60,000 people have been returned under this government, a 31% increase under his time when he was in the Home Department. So he offers criticism, but the only answer that he offers in lieu is just to tear up international agreements with no sense of what change that would drive. It would merely set back that returns work and just leave us back to years and years of debate and no action. I won't do that.
60,000 returns, a 31% increase on the Conservatives' record while Philp was in the Home Office. And he knows this because he was there. He was standing in Parliament presenting figures he knows to be incomplete in a chamber full of people who also know they were incomplete. And even if he was right about the 300 people that had been removed, that's still 296 more than they sent on a £700 million scheme. And then there's Dr. Kieran Mullen, a man who went into medicine, which I can only assume involves some training in human well-being, and who has apparently decided that the most useful thing he can do with his medical degree is stand up in Parliament and demand the government name a safe third country to deport people to.
A country that successfully tackled a similar illegal boats crossings to ours is Australia, and it tackled that not by paying people £40,000 a family to leave, but by sending them to a safe third country. I noticed the Minister completely failed to answer the question on the member from New Forest West. Does he accept reality that it's the only way we're going to tackle this problem, and when will they get on with having a safe third country to deport these people to?
Minister.
Right, a safe third country. What, like Rwanda? Which the Supreme Court ruled was not in fact safe, and cost £700 million and sent 4 people. The Minister's response for this one is almost too good.
Well, the Honourable Gentleman, I follow his work. The Honourable Gentleman always says no to large sites. He says no to hotels and then proposes fantastical third countries that he's not capable of naming. Ultimately, this is the choice. This is the choice. Do you want fantasy? Do you want more empty rhetoric and argument, or do you want change and action with this government? I know what I choose.
No seconds.
Thank you, Mr.
No, he's not capable of naming them because they don't exist. Every country that's been proposed, Rwanda, Albania, for Italy, or Australia's Pacific solution, which Mullen cites approvingly, either collapsed in the courts, cost vastly more than the problem it was solving, or operated in a completely different legal and geographical context that doesn't map into Britain's situation. The Australia comparison is one that really gets on my nerves, because it gets trotted out constantly as if it's a slam dunk. Australia has no land border with any country. It is surrounded by an ocean. The logistical and legal situation is categorically different to a country that's 22 miles from the French coast and inside the European Convention on Human Rights. Pointing at Australia and saying they fixed it is like pointing at, Iceland's crime statistics and saying Britain should just get a bit colder. So here's what really happened in Parliament this week. The government announced a scheme that, by honest accounting, cost less per person than the alternative. The opposition, same people who burned £700 million of public money sending 4 volunteers to Rwanda, stood up and called it a disgrace on financial grounds. The Conservatives don't have a plan. They had a press release and it cost a shitload of money. And Philp knows this. And if he ever gets pressed on the matter, just watch his throat when he's asked about it.